U.S. military considers potential domestic deployment under Trump a growing concern. The last instance of a U.S. president using the Insurrection Act to deploy military forces domestically occurred during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Douglas Ollivant, then a young Army lieutenant, recalls that his unit's role was largely supportive as the police took charge of the direct confrontations. His soldiers avoided engaging or detaining civilians, with a focus on supporting law enforcement in restoring order. Ollivant emphasizes that federal troops were kept away from the front lines, an approach that ensured relatively smooth operations during the chaotic riots sparked by the brutal beating of Rodney King. However, concerns are now rising within the military over the possibility of a different scenario under President-elect Donald Trump. Reports suggest that numerous retired military officers and scholars are quietly discussing the potential risks of deploying active duty troops for domestic issues, such as dealing with political dissent, immigrants, and other domestic threats. Trump has warned about. In a plan announced after the election, Trump discussed the possibility of declaring a national emergency to facilitate mass deportations of undocumented immigrants, which has only fueled these worries. The challenge, as military experts see it, lies in the fundamental difference between training soldiers to engage foreign adversaries and asking them to confront civilians on U.S. soil. Retired Lotar Gen Marvin Kovot, who commanded forces during the 1992 riots, expressed concern over the current state of military discipline, which he feels may not be as strong as it was in the past. He pointed out that during the 1992 deployment, he kept tight control over his troops, limiting the use of force and ensuring that soldiers understood the difference between civilian and military environments. This careful approach avoided fatalities, but the looming question remains: how prepared are today's forces for such domestic operations? Despite the growing unease, Trump has repeatedly suggested deploying military forces to suppress protests, defend the southern border, or enforce immigration policies. The possibility of these actions has caused anxiety among many within the military, who fear the consequences of using military power for political purposes. Trump's earlier rhetoric, such as urging military leaders to take aggressive actions against protesters during the George Floyd protests, has added to these fears. Military officials, including former Defense Secretary Mark Esper, have voiced concerns over the president's disregard for the appropriate use of force. Legal experts warn that, under the Insurrection Act, Trump could have sweeping authority to deploy troops domestically with little oversight. While troops are obligated to follow lawful orders, this raises ethical concerns about whether the military should carry out commands that could violate citizens' constitutional rights. The lack of clear rules for engagement and crowd control only adds to the uncertainty. As the debate intensifies, legal scholars and military veterans are calling for greater scrutiny of the Insurrection Act's potential misuse. The issue is sensitive within the military, and while the Pentagon has declined to comment, experts like Yale's Eugene Fidel suggest that the legal and ethical challenges surrounding domestic deployments need to be addressed before any action is taken. For now, the military faces a delicate balance between loyalty to the commander-in-chief and their duty to uphold the Constitution.